You, Billy.
I'm doing okay.
Good. I love your wife, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Very, very nice.
Wait a minute. What about my wife? You love my wife, right?
I don't know your wife.
We're going to have a love fest today. Thanks, everybody, for taking the time. This is in conversation with, and I have three very special folks with me here today. They've all welcomed me on their podcasts and their channels in the past, and I'm going to ask them one by one to just quickly introduce themselves before we jump in today.
Hello, everyone. My name is Billy Dees, and I guess I'm best known for the Billy Dees podcast. You can find me pretty much on any social media under that same name, Billy Dees, or a variation thereof. Sometimes it's Billy Dees podcast. I enjoy interviewing people. I enjoy creating commentary, and I enjoy analyzing different subjects. That's kind of where my passion is, and I am very glad to be here. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Lenora Colarusso. I am an RN holistic health coach, and I am a mom of 5 and a grandmother of 2. And I also have a podcast called It's a New Dawn. And I've been talking to people about their adversities and how they've overcome their adversities and turned them into their positives. And I also talk to people about health and wellness, holistic health, integrative health, complementary health, and some woo-woo things in there. And I love doing it. And that's a little bit about me. Thank you for having me.
Hello, everybody. Thank you, Kevin, for inviting us here to have this conversation today. My name is Smitha Gunturi, and I'm a host of Journey Podcast. And I also been working as a woman advocate past 7 or 8 years. And I work with only few focused topics that are much related to me because I have gone through all those things myself. So if you watch my podcast, probably you'll understand what are the topics that I focus on. And definitely, I'm grateful for any opportunities that I'm getting to pass on my opinions or give any insight. Thank you.
Smitha, Lenora, Billy Dees, you guys are wonderful to be here with me today. We're going to talk about happiness in a couple of seconds. This is in conversation with. So it's really an extension of what we've done already. Each one of us have met one-on-one, but now it's the four of us chatting. And we've chosen as a topic, everybody, today, happiness. Now, there's a lot of things out there about happiness. There's a lot of things that we ripped right off the web for this. And I'll be the first one to admit, I'll put a link down below in the description for Calm. Calm has a wonderful 7 points of happiness, 7 principles per se. We don't want 7 today. We really picked the top 4 in our minds. Now, each one of us has our own view of how happiness has really infiltrated our life. But sometimes we pushed away happiness. I know for me, as someone who was adopted, abandoned, someone who was abused, someone who struggled with addiction, that even when happiness was in my life, even when the people around me were loving and caring and happy to have me there, sometimes I broke down and I pushed that away. Well, we're going to talk today about some of those obstacles, but we're really going to talk about 4 specific areas of finding happiness, being happy, living in a happy way. And those 4 are living in the now, self-love and acceptance, health, and basically prioritizing your health, and embracing uncertainty. And I've already warned my wonderful contestants today that there will probably be a little curveball. I'll probably throw in a 5th, but we're going to start with Lenora, and we're going to talk about living in the now. And then we're going to do round robin. Each of us, if we want to take about 2 minutes, just chat about living in the now, what it means to you today, and what are some of the hurdles that you've had to overcome in your life to get there.
Okay, the first thing I thought of when I heard that was I'm a yoga teacher, and I have been teaching yoga since I'm 39, so a while. And I remember being told if we live in the past, it brings on depression. And if we think about the future, it brings on anxiety. And I find that to be very, very true. So I really try to live in the present as much as I can. Of course, that was not easy. People that know my story, of course, I grew up with a lot of trauma. But I find if I remember that it makes it much easier for me to live in the present. Because if you think about it, it's very true. It is very true. What brought me to that point was my meditation mostly and my yoga practice, because it makes me more conscious off the mat. So of course it's great to be on the mat and to come, and I always call it a practice. It's always a practice, even though I've been practicing for since I'm 39. So it's a long time, but it's always a practice. But what the magic actually comes off the mat, and off the mat when I'm meditating, because those spaces in between thoughts become longer when I'm meditating. And then I'm able to make way better conscious decisions off the mat. And that's in every aspect, whether it's grabbing something to eat, dealing with other people, living in the past or the future. It makes me be more aware of living in the present moment.
Thanks, Lenora. Billy, we're going to head straight to you for a little bit of living in the now. What does that mean to you today, and what are some of the breaking points for you? Lenora was really exquisite in talking about how she approaches it, and also some of the barriers to it. How about you?
Well, some of these things that we're going to talk about today, I've had very little problem with. Some of them I've had, great deals of problems with. Living in the now is probably one of the ones I've struggled with. And it's hard to discern objectively when the things that have happened to you matter and when they don't. From a physics standpoint, now, for example, a single instant is very hard to define because even a fraction of a second has a beginning, middle, and end. And we are all to some degree, excuse me, a product of our past. And you can't ignore that. You can't pretend that past isn't there. But where do you strike the balance of, okay, my past happened. Am I going to let it influence my now? And am I going to let it influence my future? And that's a hard juggling act to manage. A lot of us are going to drop a few balls trying to figure out how to do that little act. And a lot of the apprehensions that I had coming from being an only child, I didn't necessarily have a trauma, so to speak. But I was an only child. I spent a lot of time alone. I had older parents. All of my cousins were 10 or 15 years older than I was. And that's not a lot when you're in your 40s. But when you're 6 years old and all your cousins are 17 or 18, that's a big difference. And I spent a lot of time alone. It was good in the aspect of I didn't have a lot of peers influencing me, shaping my opinions about different cultures, different races, women, etc. That part of it was good. The bad part of it was being alone. I was very emotionally stinted. I was very immature. I didn't have my first relationship with a woman until I was, I don't know, say 19, 20, 21 years old. And even then, it was very immature. I didn't really manage those emotions very well. So I think we have to be aware of our past. We have to know what our shortcomings are. And I went through that in my 20s. I was aware what my shortcomings were when it came to human relations, so to speak, getting along with people, having relationships. I knew what my limitations were, but I also struck that balance that I was not going to let it influence me. I was not going to let it inhibit my development as I got older. And it didn't happen overnight, but I did manage to get it together.
Thanks, Billy. And I'm going to jump in here and then we'll move on to Smitha. I think that my real take on this in so many ways echoes what you're saying, which is it's about choice. And Lenora is saying the same thing here. There are decisions I make, and the decisions I made yesterday or 30 years ago are going to still be relevant, even in the breath I'm taking right now. I'm going to just focus in on one thing because I don't want to just rehash what you just said. I think one of the most important things for me about living in the now is what we're doing right now. One of the things that I've realized is Lenora was really good about talking about what I call mindfulness, this practice of meditation, of being still. And even in my stillness, realizing that I'm not being still. Billy is so right. Physics just means I'm moving every second. Everything's moving every second. But as I take that breath in and I take that breath out, am I present for the people in my life? Am I present for the world as it is? Am I thinking about only myself? Because living in the now for me does not mean a self-centered now. It means a self-service now. I want to be of service to others. When Billy or Lenora or Smitha, when any of you had me on your channels and we talked, we were there with each other. Now there's 4 of us all connected, listening, being there and being of service to each other right now. I find that that's the idea of, why am I living in the now? It's not just how to, but why. And if my why is about other people. Smitha, go ahead.
Hearing to all of you guys, there is a quotation that I remember right now is like, the past is unchangeable, the future is unknowable. So there is nothing much that you can do living in your past. And there is nothing that you can predict about your future. Anything can change at any point of time. So whatever that you are carrying from a very long time, and it took like a very long, very, very long time for me, as Bill said, yes, it is not going to happen overnight. As Lenora was also mentioning about her struggles or like how she is today, it is not going to definitely happen overnight. The way you have to work through it, the steps, the choices, as you were also mentioning, the choices that you are taking to better yourself every day is going to take you to a place to better yourself and have that fulfilling life, whether be it a service that you're going to choose, be it something else that you're going to choose, be kind to another person, anything that you wanted to choose is where you're going to have. And if you keep on, it is not easy to let go your past. Instead, I would say like, yeah, work on the past, accept it, and then say like, yes, I'm not letting it go. There is nothing to let it go. Instead, I'm going to accept, yes, this has happened to me, or like this has happened to someone else. I'm taking it in. I'm working with whatever that I have accepted to build myself on top of it instead of saying, yes, I'm letting it go.
Our next piece of understanding how happiness manifests in our life, and how we, again, the hurdles, you just talked about them, how not just acceptance, but let's talk about self-love. If we talk about self-love in relation to our own personal happiness and also the happiness of our lives, right? What does that mean? How could you embody self-love and acceptance? And then we'll go on to Lenora and Billy Dees.
When I say self-acceptance, we always live in a perception of like somebody is going to, for example, if I dress up like this, more than me looking at my in the mirror and say like, yes, I look beautiful, or like I'm comfortable with this dress, I think about other person, like, will the other person like when I walk out? Will they appreciate me, or like, will they give me a compliment, whether it is good or not? So I'm actually living in the perception of what the other person is thinking instead of accepting what I like. So we live in a world like, yeah, living on a perception of a perception from other persons. We are not accepting ourselves on what we like. We are first not acknowledging what we like or like what we wanted. And we always seek that acceptance from the other person, not self-accepting ourselves. And we live in that judgmental life. We are not going to go and ask the other person saying like, hey, do I look good? My dress is good or not? Instead, we think it ourselves. We think for ourselves like, yeah, maybe that person might not like it because they did not compliment, or like maybe they like it, they complimented it. Instead of living in that self-judgment without loving yourself, accepting yourself, I would say, take it in, you accept yourself. The moment you accept yourself, nobody's other judgment or any other compliment, comment would never be in your way for anything. That's where your self-growth starts.
For me, the self-love and acceptance, that took a long time for me to know that I'm more than just what I am on the outside, because of my trauma. Again, that's what I felt. My exterior was everything. And that's why now I embrace the age and getting older and my wrinkles and all of that. But this was a journey for sure. And again, I have to say that the self-love and acceptance came from the tools that I have in my tool belt. And one of them was the meditation and being more conscious of the thoughts that I think about myself, my mirror work, my journaling, my gratitude journal, my I ams. I am worthy. I am smart. I am beautiful. I am important. And these were things that I wrote and wrote and wrote and said to myself until it was comfortable writing them and saying them, which took a long time. And I have one daughter and 4 boys, and it's hard. It's hard to see that she feels unworthy sometimes and doesn't have the self-love and acceptance. But what I tell her, and actually was in the article that I read, was treat yourself as you would say to your best friend. Would you tell your best friend that she did not look good, or that she was big, or I hate to say fat, or um, not beautiful? Of course you wouldn't. So treat yourself as you would your mom, somebody who you love. And I've always had that in my head. So I try to treat myself as I would to if I was to say something to my mom, um, and treat myself with self love and respect and acceptance. And again, it wasn't an overnight thing. It was something I've worked on for the last 40 years. So, yeah.
Thank you, Lenora. Billy, from a self-love and acceptance, and I know that you're one of the folks amongst the four of us who possibly has not endured some of these traumas that we're talking about.
Yeah.
But from a specific understanding of these things, these pieces of acceptance, self-acceptance is the word we're using, but acceptance and really self-love. This applies whether you're traumatized or not. Each one of us has a particular journey. Can you talk to us a little bit about yours?
Yeah, I'm probably a bit of an oddball when it comes to most people on this, in that because of the fact that I was an only child, and I always have said that even if I wasn't an only child, I probably still would have ended up a loner. I was very much alone, and that's something that, to my mom's credit, knowing that I was born to older parents, and a lot of these people were more along in life, even my cousins and so on and so forth, that I was going to spend a lot of time alone. And I think she instilled that with me from a very early age. I didn't have any brothers or sisters to bug to go play with or anything. I had to more or less entertain myself. And I think that for me, here again, it was a double-edged sword. In a lot of ways, became too content in being alone. I came too content with who I was. And not that's not to say conceited or anything. I never felt that I was better than anybody else, but I was so content for so many years that a lot of my development, like I said, was held back. I didn't necessarily feel the need to be accepted into a group, which on the surface is a great thing because they can influence you in terms of partying too much, or your attitude towards women and a lot of other bad things. But by the same token, a lot of the basic things that came very naturally to people, whether it be making friends, asking a girl for her number, all these other things, I was held back. So if anything, I'm going to be the odd man out here and say I was too content with who I was. And I didn't realize until probably I was in my mid 20s that I had to make some changes, and that I was a little too strange in a lot of ways. And here again, that's a relative term. There's nothing wrong with being an oddball. There's nothing wrong with being a nerd. There's nothing wrong with being any of those things. But when it inhibits the way that you go through life and you interact with people, then you really need to self-examine. And I kind of went through that.
I'm glad you talk about this openly about being an only child. And I don't think we've ever talked about it before. I was raised an only child. I was adopted. My parents did want to have other children or adopt others, and they didn't. And I so understand your description of the kind of the distance between who I was and who my peers were, who I was and who my peers' families, like my family, because my parents were older and had adopted older, they didn't have the same circle of friends as my other friends' parents did. So there was a big difference in age groups. There was a big difference in what I understand now, because I have 2 boys and 2 girls, is I didn't know how to negotiate with unreasonable people. I didn't know how to negotiate with kids, brothers, sisters. I knew how to negotiate with adults, because that's what I saw every day. That level of, and I love the word you use, which is contentment. I was worried that if I was headed towards this self-love, sounds very, what is the word that Lenora used earlier? Kind of fluffy stuff. It sounds all soft and mushy at the beginning. I thought if I was going to be full of self-love and self-acceptance, that I wouldn't be full of contentment. I would be complacent, that I
Yeah.
wouldn't be really growing, and I would just be happy with who I was and where I was. And then why do anything at that point? I
Yeah.
found the opposite to be true. The more I focused on my own level of acceptance, self-acceptance, that means I have to accept myself, warts and all. I have to accept myself with all my limitations. And that doesn't mean I don't want to grow them. I don't want to change. I just know that if I fight those things, if I don't look at accepting myself for who I am, I can't even begin to take the first step of growing. And that self-love and that self-acceptance has been hard fought, hard won, I should say, and still is on a daily basis. I'm going to give you a nice order so you can all relax for a minute, and you'll know, Lenora, you're going to go number 1, Smitha, you're going to go number 2, and Billy, you're going to go number 3. We're going to focus on something, and there's a reason I picked Lenora first, because she knows what's coming up. There's a wonderful area of happiness that we don't often think of, because happiness, we talk about, I'm happy, I'm smiling, I'm emotionally happy, I'm enjoying myself, I'm relaxing. But what about physical happiness, especially our health? And the topic is prioritizing, not just saying that health is important, but making it a priority. Because for me, and I'll let Lenora talk about this, I know it's so easy to put that last in line.
Billy especially knows that. There's one thing I really appreciate that my father did, was instill this health and this discipline in me. They did a lot of things wrong, but my dad was a national handball champion of the world, and he was a Golden Glove champion. So from a young age, it was instilled in me. And it, to this day, I mean, putting the connection together with, especially, I want to say food, and I talk about this on a lot of podcasts. We don't put enough emphasis on mental health and the connection with food. I don't even equate fast food as food. I just feel that things are just loaded with chemicals. They make it keep coming back to that food to keep you wired to come back. And the way I healed from bulimia and the foundation was definitely food. And it was learning about how important what I put in my mouth and putting out there in the world, and giving myself a little bit of happiness, a little bit at a time, was possible from what I was ingesting. Because you got to remember, I was bulimic. So I was putting in anything that I could stuff away my feelings. And I had to heal. I was going to die. And, and again, this was not an overnight thing. And it was something that I have worked on for a long time. But that food piece was so important. The quality of food, meaning whole foods, picking it, growing it, or killing it, and trying not to have man-made stuff in my body. So that was my foundation. So I was able to express my happiness much better, and a lot of other things. And of course, exercise. And when I say exercise, I would say right away, don't make it difficult. If you can get yourself out in nature and put your feet to the ground, do weight-bearing exercise, which is weight-bearing exercise, being outside in nature, that's huge. That's gonna raise your endorphins. That's you just surrounding yourself with trees and birds and other people, and hearing your feet on the ground and feeling the air on your face. I mean, I hugged a tree yesterday, and I I said the trees give you life, and we give the trees life. It amazes me, but I appreciate it so much. So of course, exercise and food are so important.
You make me want to be a tree.
Oh my God.
I think all of us want to be a tree. And
I love trees. And Billy knows that I'm not, I do this. I put it on my TikTok. I absolutely go and hug a tree because I just love them.
I'm also grateful, before Billy, I give it to you, I'm also grateful that you immediately, because I think a lot of times when we talk about prioritizing health, we all go straight to physical. And you just said, we're talking about health. And the word health now, it really is becoming something that, especially during the pandemic, and I know where I work, we've especially been looking at this. We're not going to even, there's almost no sense in differentiating between a physical and a mental, or even what I would say an emotional and a spiritual health. We need health. And when you talk about that from the perspective of what we put in, oh my gosh, I could do a whole session just on that and how that's changed my life. One of my favorite times of the day is in the morning when I drink my glass of water. Water is a whole food, for God's sakes. It is a whole food.
I do. And if you add a little lemon to it, it kickstarts the body. Now, let's not talk about it's not a detox, it's not a weight loss thing. I'm just saying that lemon really like sparks up your system in the morning. So I start my day with this 32-ounce Hydro Flask water and lemon, and I just drink all day.
Perfect. Yeah. And this is not going to mean anything to you, Lenora, but hi, Damien, because my friend Damien and I, he knows it's an inside joke about his lemon tea every single morning. Hey, Damien.
This is probably one of the areas that I have had some issues over the years. I've been lucky that I'm naturally strong. I can probably thank the genes that I got from my grandfather for that. I always had a pretty strong build, which held it hid some of the weight, I should say, that I've gained and lost over the years. I've gone through spells where I've gotten really heavy, and then I've gone through spells where I've probably lost too much weight. And I'm not sure if it's connected to anything per se in my life, but I can tell you there is a correlation for sure with, like you say, overall health. And I work for an agency right now where, we're dealing with a lot of people who have had issues in the past with their mental health. And now with COVID, they're cooped up in the house. They're not going out. They're not doing things. And, it's real easy to just order a pizza and have it delivered or whatever, have something delivered. And you sit there and you eat that junk food and you stare at the wall, and you do this day after day. And I have gotten into this in when I've started gaining weight. It's real easy to get discouraged. It's real easy to fall into, I wouldn't say a clinical state of depression, but I get depressed. When you get depressed, what do? Well, you lay down. So it just keeps rolling along. You gain more weight, you don't have energy, and your mental status is that of kind of depressed, which makes you lay down more. It makes you eat more junk food. And it's really a thing where feeling good about yourself means physically feeling like you have energy, physically feeling like you can get into your clothes comfortably. And I'm not talking about being rail thin, but just being healthy. And that gives you energy, that gives you motivation to go out and do things, which lifts your spirits, which gives you more energy, which helps, so they really roll along together. And I can attest to that because I've rolled downhill. I've improved myself, and I need to get on a plane where I'm improving myself physically and staying active.
I relate with Bill a lot here. Even I'm not perfect with keeping it up. First thing, as he was addressing about the mental health, as Lenora started with her talk, yes, definitely there were places, I have to say, there were the depression times. I did not even identify it as a depression, because in our culture, there is no depression, no anxiety, nothing actually. When you say that, yes, I'm kind of feeling low or sad or down, depressed, all that you will get from your parents or anybody around would be like, drink a glass of water and go pray. You'll be fine after that. It was never even.
Can I say something?
Sure.
Say something now? Do you eat a lot of ghee, right?
Yes.
Ghee. Okay. Bingo. Ghee is one of the most healthiest things for your brain. So your brain is 60% fat. So let me tell you, and I've heard that often. In my culture, we don't have depression, and I'm not saying that's the be all. I'm just saying that a lot of the things that you guys cook with are great for the brain.
Thank you for that. I didn't know that it is helpful in that way. I have no idea about that. I just learned it. But yeah, coming back to the topic, yes, there was no concept of any of that. So I used to, as Bill was mentioning, I used to eat a lot, anything that I can get my hands on. I sleep a lot. Just wanted to get out of whatever that is in my mind that used to help me at that time. The more I started coming out and started helping other people, are like, getting help for myself when I'm talking to the other people. where I started having that cautious is when I started feeling that kick when I'm talking to the other people. The minute you start enjoying that a little bit, the more I started focusing on my mental health. Physical health is still like, yeah, still in a debate, or like, you're still in a place of where I have to start, I'm going to start. Another thing with my physical health is like every time I talk to my son a lot every single day, like couple of hours or more than couple of hours. When I'm talking to him, I express to something like, you are not coming out with me anymore. You're not spending time with me going outside anymore. The only thing that he asked is like, okay, now I wanted to go for a hike. Are you okay to walk with me? I wanted to go and walk for like a couple of miles or even 5-6 miles. Will you be okay with it? I want you to come out and have that kind of activities. For me to think from that perspective, yes, I have to be healthy. But again, when he's telling that to me, I know from where he's coming that. So he is actually putting me on spot saying like, you have to take care of your physical health as well. It's just not mental health to be active and happy, even more happier. So yes, I'm still working on it. I'm not there yet, but yes, I'll definitely be there.
I don't know how to say this, but let's all eat ghee. Everybody, let's put that on our to-do list, guys. I will have to ask, but if I can, I will put a list down below in the description, recipes, anything we can get. I need to take suggestions from others. And I love that Lenora is telling someone about food from someone else's culture. And Smitha, you said, oh, I wasn't aware of that. It's just like when I have, like turmeric or something like that, and people say, yeah, we eat that all the time. Didn't really realize it was an anti-inflammatory. And there's a lot of things that we can learn and keep an open mind to. And I think that helps us to really grow. I'm going to start this next topic, which is embracing uncertainty, with a quote. And you may know Frank Herbert. He wrote the book, the Dune series. And there's a quote that I've always loved, and I can't remember which Dune book it was from. I used to think it was the original, but it's not. Abandon certainty. That is life's deepest command. That is what life is all about. That was a very strong statement for me. And it was a really strong understanding of certainty wasn't just something that I needed to avoid. It was something I needed to abandon. The idea of being certain, that thinking that life was going to be certain, that even I could be certain, like I could have all the answers someday. I could learn from this discussion, or anyone who's listening to this right now, taking this all in, it's just still going to be hopefully just a little smidgen of what we need to learn just for the day, just for tomorrow, maybe just for the week. But making sure that I not only take an understanding of abandoning certainty, I really get that, but let's embrace the uncertainty. Now, this topic is really dicey right now, isn't it, though? You want me to abandon uncertainty during a pandemic, and that's going to make me happy? That's a head scratcher, isn't it? And the understanding that I've had is when I think about embracing, it doesn't mean that I have to like it. It doesn't mean that I have to be even comfortable with it every day, but I have to embrace it like I've embraced many of my demons of my past. A lot of the pain and the suffering of my life, and you folks know it, and anyone who's new to the channel, there's a lot of things that many of us have gone through. And when I fought them off and acted like I could just put them in a box or bury them in the backyard, that made it worse. I know that for a fact. But I didn't have to love them, but I certainly did have to, there's an old phrase, I had to invite the monster in for tea. And I had to sit down with that uncertainty. I had to sit down with those pains, those aches, those fears. And through embracing that, I've learned to live a very different life, a life in which I can live in the now, a life in which I can have some self-love, and a life in which I can care for myself physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. So now this is a little surprise. You notice that I didn't give you a heads up who's going first. Billy?
Okay.
Would you like to share on that for us?
Sure. I'll harken back to physics. There's a saying that the one constant in the universe is that sooner or later, everything is doomed to change. And it's not a matter of when, of if it's going to happen. It's a matter of when. And a lot of times I know that it's very comforting to be in a certain lane. And this is probably, here again, one of my pitfalls. I don't particularly like it when unexpected things come up during my workday or anything else and get thrown at me. And of course, those are short-term things. And a lot of times when you are planning your finances or you're planning anything else out over a period of months or years, here again, it's very difficult to say to yourself, I'm comfortable with this because A, B, and C are going to happen. And oftentimes A, B, and C don't happen in that order. So it's important to be flexible. It's important to be able to bend with the wind. And a lot of times, oddly enough, some of the greatest achievements that I've had, whether it be in my career or other things, have been when unexpected things have happened. Sometimes stepping out of that comfort zone makes you utilize a different set of skills. So, yes, a lot of times unexpected things do not make our day, but by the same token, they can also open up opportunities to you. And here again, like you said, a lot of times you may not like it at first, certainly, but that's almost secondary to being able to handle it. Say, well, okay, this happened this way, and I am going to do my best with this given set of circumstances. And sometimes it can turn out even better, but you got to give it a chance. If you resist those changes, you completely foil the opportunity for a better outcome.
You talk so much about planning to today's my day, A, B, and C will happen. And I don't know about you guys, but I might get A, B, and C. And then after that, I get one, Orange, and Wyoming. I mean, the things that
Mhm.
come at me in my day are not only uncertain, but they're foreign. Sometimes
Yes.
I not only didn't I imagine they were going to happen, I have no experience with them. I have no reference points for them. I only know my alphabet, ABCs. I don't know the
Yep.
ones. I don't know these other things. But getting ourselves in a habit of embracing those things when they come gets us, it builds those different kind of muscles that when new things come at us, we're less afraid and we're more
Hmm.
likely to learn from them and grow. Wonderful, wonderful, Billy. Thank you.
Sure.
Smitha.
There's a lot that I have to talk about this. I recently wrote an article about fear of freedom, the unknown. This is something related to the same topic, I believe. We get comfortable, so much comfortable being uncomfortable. Every pain or anything that is introduced to us will be slowly introduced. It's not going to happen overnight that you are happy today and next day you are like super sad with whatever the reasons that you have. In my case, the example that I quoted in my article is I've been in an abusive relationship for more than a decade. It did not happen overnight on the first day itself. It was slowly introduced one after the other. First, it started with verbal abuse, then it was physical, then it was mental, emotional, and even financial and everything. Since that was introduced to me one after the other throughout a decade, it was not a foreign thing for me. So it was slowly introduced. I'm kind of used to it. So I don't really wanted to go for a change because I accepted it thinking that is my life. That's what it is going to be. The minute I started like, yes, I have to change something, I couldn't go out to think like, yes, I have to change it because I'm living in a pathetic life or whatever that is. Because I can't embrace that uncertainty. I can't embrace like what is there without me controlling that thing. Though I'm uncomfortable here getting beaten every day, I'm comfortable here because I know what is that coming for me. I know what to expect here. But if I have to step out and make the change, I don't know what I can expect outside. So you are losing the control there. You don't have control on what you can expect. So that made me to reach to a place. And Kevin, I saw your tweet about it, like, yeah, suicide prevention, like, because I reached to a point I wanted to die because I can't really control anything. I don't want to go out to that uncertainty place where I don't know what is going to happen. I don't know all the scenarios. I have no idea what it is there. And for me, why I don't even want to see that is like for all these years I've been told I'm worthless and I'm nothing. So all these things are like so much implanted in me that I don't even wanted to try anything new
Mhm.
because since I accepted that I'm not worthy of anything, I don't feel like yes I can even make a difference or like I can even change something within myself. So yes, definitely you have to understand what is that. Even small things, as I gave examples in that article itself, I'm not at all used to talk to new people at all, period. Starting this work gave me a little window of talking to new people. I'm talking to a completely new person like you, Kevin. Like in the first conversation itself, we spoke more than 2 hours. I was explaining about mine and you were explaining. I don't even know who you are, but I trusted you. I started sharing all my pain. The pain is what is connecting all of us. And that level of understanding is what, without judgments, is what I wanted. I did not ever get that from anybody that I'm actually living with. That might be colleagues at work or anything. Because the minute you just go to somebody and explain, like, it's most of the time it will be like another judgment coming back at you saying, oh, if you are not being so dumb there, you'll be better. So we are afraid of those judgments from other person, and then we'll stop ourselves even for the change. So you have to let go of all those things and then jump out.
You are speaking so purely of what I understand all this conversation about happiness about. If we're to be happy, we must take risks.
Yeah.
If we're to be happy and to share that with the world around us, we must let others see us vulnerably. We must have others in our lives that may hurt us, but also can learn to be a comfort to us. The four of us have learned to really care about each other and lift each other up. We're not here today because we've got all the best advice for the people in the world. We want to grow and we want to change and we want to do this together.
Yeah.
I also know that, speaking directly to you, Smitha, your son, my children, all of our children, and the people in our lives, we're modeling this for them. So when we show these things, these abilities for us to just fall down sometimes, take risks, get hurt, but yet embrace the uncertainty that might come tomorrow, that models it for them. And hopefully they'll be less afraid. Or even if they are afraid, and it's okay to be afraid, to have the courage that we have.
When you were mentioning embrace it and letting to our next generation, being vulnerable there, before you are opening up your pain to someone else, don't think that you will get a positive response from the other person. Not all the time you will get encouraging talk or like a positive response. Do not worry about the outcome from other person. If you trust, if you want to share, try to pick that person really careful, but just in case if things happen, mishappen, that's fine. Let it go and then keep moving forward. Do not come back and close out your doors thinking like, yes, that person did not accept and I'll never talk about this to anybody because it's not going to help me in any way.
Thank you.
Lenora, sorry.
Don't be sorry. You're so beautiful. Look at that smile. One thing I know for sure, that nothing is certain. Nothing is certain. I think definitely coming from adversities in your life, and I mean really bad adversities, it teaches you that. And also dealing with death. My husband's two sisters died at 28 and 48 from cancer, and happened within 3 months, both of them. And it was a shock. And that's actually why I named my business It's a New Dawn. It's named after my sister-in-law. It devastated me, but you know, nothing, no amount of money could have saved her. And I know for sure that nothing is certain. And it teaches you those deaths. And even my brother committing suicide, you know, put me in a perspective where my motto is, what's the best that could happen? Not the worst, the best. Because I live each day being in complete gratitude, because I never know what tomorrow is going to bring. So through those adversities, through those deaths, you just never know. So it made me a much stronger person and appreciate every moment of my life. And I actually do my gratefuls every day. And I do say, I'm grateful for my life. I'm grateful to be here because I don't know if I'm going to die tomorrow. I don't know if my husband's not going to be here tomorrow. You just never know. So I'm able to live in the now. And again, what's the best that could happen? And also COVID made me very, I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know about Zoom. I didn't know how to do anything. And I've learned so much. So I'm actually grateful for it. And that was full of uncertainties, but you live and you learn. So.
Thank you, Lenora. One of the things that I want to follow up on is this sense, we were talking about a lot about self-acceptance, self-love, and a lot of this is about finding our own happiness by some of these things that we can have some control over. And living in the now, I can make changes. We talked about how I can make choices, and self-love and self-acceptance. There are processes that I can put in place. And also with prioritizing my health, those are obvious. There's some obvious things, exercising, hugging trees. I can live my life the way I want to. And embracing uncertainty is, I think, a really great, almost foundation for each one of these others. There are some things that are outside of our control completely. I know that for many of us on this call, and me in particular, I was hurt a lot. There was a lot of pain and struggle and strife. And one of the hardest things has been forgiveness. One of the biggest pieces of my life, and this wasn't one of the 7 that I gave you, so this is my little curveball to anyone watching this. No one on this call saw this coming but me. Forgiveness has been one of the hardest hills for me to climb. And forgiving the people that had abandoned me, that had molested or raped me, that had brutalized me, and forgiving the pain and suffering that I had not asked for, that I did not deserve, that I did not set myself up for, has been difficult. And it's been piecemeal. I've had to do it one little piece at a time. But one of the things that I realized was the more I forgive others, the more I am free to live my life. And when I don't, I hold on to that pain and I hold on to that hurt. And it hurts no one and keeps no one down but me. So the surprise is not a happy one. I'm not talking about something simple, I guess. This is probably the hardest topic we could think of, but I think it has completely affected my ability to be a happy person. And defining happiness is quite different than maybe what you might read in a dictionary. So we're going to go nice and slow on this one. I'm going to give you a nice heads up. I'm going to go with Lenora, then we're going to go to Billy, and we're going to end with Smitha, if you don't mind. And I really want to hear about that ability to forgive. And it doesn't matter if you don't have that ability. Not all of us do. And I think after 30 years of working hard at it, I'm starting to just get the fruits of that. Go ahead, guys.
I'm glad you said that, because not everybody is going to be at that point to forgive. I don't know where I read that. I don't know. I used to preach, you got to forgive and free yourself. But for some people, it just does not happen. So for me, I literally really got tired of looking at myself in the mirror with this anger on my face. And that's a true story. I really got tired of this angry Lenora, the angry Lenora with the scowl between the eyebrows, and got very sick of it. And, it was a lot of work, just like I was saying with everything else. It was not an overnight thing. Being abused by a priest, I had not only to, forgive the priest, but also God, which was huge, because I believe in God, but I hated God, I was pissed at my parents for letting it happen, and pissed at my parents for when I told them at 35, my mother barely recognized, my father never said a word. And for the boy who attacked me, and for my brother's friends, and my best friend who hurt me, and my husband who actually hurt me a few times. And but I literally just got tired of being angry. That was it. And it was small increments, and I was able to let go. And like you said, Billy, Kevin, little by little, I got freer and freer. And I feel really good about it now. And I feel free. Thank you.
Thank you, my friend.
I would have to say this is an area that I've probably struggled with. I don't know that forgiveness comes easily to me. I guess the best way that I can describe it for me isn't so much that I've forgotten a lot of the things that have happened or forgave them. But getting back to, accepting a certain situation, there are people that are rotten individuals. I'm not. I believe that most people are not. I guess as a humanitarian, I believe that most people are basically good. But there are people that have been described in literature and in works of faith as the incorrigibly wicked. They are always going to turn away from the light, and you can either derail your life by hating them, or worse yet, taking action against them. Or it's not so much forgiveness, but you just have to accept that those people are there, and you have to take the path that is best for you. Sometimes you do have to bring closure to that situation by confronting them in some way. And sometimes the best thing for you is to keep going down your path and leaving them behind. It's not a matter of whether you're going to forgive them or not, but it's a matter of staying on your own path to happiness and making sure that that path doesn't get derailed any further. And that's probably the most positive spin that I can put on.
Forgiveness for me, I think it's very different for every person. For me, it is like, to be honest, I will not face the person, or like, I'm not going to go back to the person who did everything to me, starting from my childhood sexual abuse when I'm 80 years old. I'm not going to go back to that person if I'm seeing him today saying like, I forgive you. Instead, I would like to tell like, yeah, whatever you have done is cruel. You are the adult at that point of time. You know what you're doing. You ruined a child's life and it impacted their complete life. What am I actually forgiving here is, I'm accepting, as Bill mentioned, I'm accepting that it happened to me. And I forgive myself. I don't have the ability to fight for it at that point of time. I forgive myself. I don't have the knowledge, support, or anything that it happened. And I could not fight for it. Even being an adult in my abusive relationship with my husband, ex-husband, I don't have enough support. So I forgive myself to move forward. It is for me to let it go behind, and then yes, I'm moving forward with my life. I chose to be happy. I'm not going to live in the past with whatever the things that are happened to me at that point of time. So forgiveness for me is, I'm forgiving myself that I was not able to fight there.
There's an incredible word that you just used there, which is fight. And I know that for me, I had this, and still sometimes have this incredible urgency to defend myself, to not just go. I don't want to go back and hurt the people who hurt me, but I just want to make sure nobody can hurt me again. I just want to make sure nobody's ever going to hurt me again. And it's just impossible.
Yeah.
I'm going to get hurt. One of you might hurt me someday. You may say something. It may be an affront. It may be a slight. You may not even mean it, but it may devastate me. It may put me on my knees. And if I want to be able to move past that possible hurt, that possible loss is what I say, because I think of these things as losses. I lose something when a friend hurts me. I lose something when an adult abuses me. I lose something. I lost so much, incredible. But if I want to just add up my losses and be an accumulation of my losses, that's going to tear me down to be the person that I never wanted to be. That's why I want to forgive. I think the self-forgiveness is important. I think for me, and I'll put it down below in the description, folks, I have a concept of forgiving that understands absorbing the debt. In other words, somebody owes me something here. They hurt me and they should pay, but they're not gonna. They're not gonna. Some of them are dead and gone. Some of them just don't want to. Some of them just don't care. But I have to absorb that debt. And when I do that, I do it for me, but I also do it for my future, because the next time I get hurt, I want to learn, how do I absorb that debt now? Because I may not get someone to make amends to me. I really want to thank each and every one of you for coming on today. I think that we ended on this wonderfully powerful note, And each one of you who's listening, thank you so much for taking the time. Billy and Lenora and Smitha, all the information for each one of these folks will be down below in the description. Please sign up for their podcast. Please support what we're doing here, and please come back. And if you haven't had a chance, like this video, subscribe, and share this with everybody and anybody that you know. Thanks everybody for being here. I am so grateful for all your
Thank
time.
you.
Love you guys.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate you all. Namaste.
Namaste.